Lowe's has more of what trade pros like you need to get the job done. That means more delivery options, more convenient hours to fit your schedule, and more savings to fit your budget. More of the brands you trust the most. More of everything you need, all in one place. That's why, in the past year, more electricians, landscapers, painters, plumbers, and other pros helped make Lowe's the new home for trade pros. U.S. only.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Yo, 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 what up? This is Rocky Asuka Romero of Chaos, and you are listening to Keepin It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the ace of podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the ace of podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll be discussing Will Ospreay, the Locker Room Unrest, Road to Wrestle Grand Slam, Collision Night 3, and answering your questions and covering all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts and columns over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/Social Suplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate. Click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the Njpw EXT, the only browser extension for njpwworld.com with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. That was a lot of rundown you just did there. I mean, you're making it sound like there's a lot going on in the world of New Japan, where I feel like, you know, that I call bullshit on that, you know?
Nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening. We had 2 shows. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You don't have to catch me up on this stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure you're unaware of all that's going on right now.
What I do know is Jeff Cobb's out there beating some ass. That's what I know. Other than that, I couldn't tell you. It's been pretty uneventful. You know, I was worried we weren't gonna have enough content to do a show this week. Thought we might need to do a best of.
Dude, there is no way that I could sit through and re-listen to like 3 hours of 4 years worth of podcasts to try and pull together the best of episodes.
And unfortunately, we're not beloved enough to have like a fan who has compiled a list for us, you know, and presented it to us, because that would make life a lot easier, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be out here winging it. Winging it more than I already do.
Well, contrary to what you believe, young boy, we have tons to talk about this week here in the world of New Japan.
All right, we'll do it. We'll talk about New Japan. God.
But real quick, before we talk about New Japan, I just want to plug the Social Suplex Fantasy Draft, the 2021 Fantasy Draft. It should be on your feeds now if you are subscribed over at the Social Suplex Podcast Network feed. Had our annual draft where podcasts from the Social Suplex Podcast Network all drafting their own roster, 24 rounds. We drafted 12 men, 6 women, 6 tag teams, And we're going to put together a fantasy card that you listeners will get to vote on in the next coming week or so. So make sure you go out to the Social Suplex feed, check out the draft episode, and start thinking who has the best roster as we get ready to put together our fantasy cards.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not a big fan of what they made us do here. 6 women? I had to draft 6 women? I was under the impression that we were trying to emulate New Japan and do a NJPW authentic show, and then they're like, you got to draft 6 women. I was like, for what for? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
We tried to take Peter, and they said no.
Yeah, just we didn't have the strategy there for the women. We were always focused on the men.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, actually, so, we did pretty good for our women's roster.
Here's, in my opinion, I believe that we have won the draft the last 2 years running. There's no doubt about last year's. We definitely won last year's officially.
Yes.
I think we're the unofficial 2 years running back-to-back champions. So how can we keep getting like 4th pick every single time it's randomized draw, And how come One Nation Radio, I think this is the second time One Nation Radio had first pick in 3 years. 2 out of 3, that's I don't know, that's a little suspicious sounding to me.
Something ain't right.
Yeah, something's not right. Something's not on the up and up. The fix is in.
That's all right, because every year we still draft an amazing roster. Like you mentioned last year, we officially won. Our fantasy card was voted the top card from last year's draft. And, we're going to have a fire card again this year.
Yeah. So you guys give that episode a listen. Really, really fun stuff. Very, very competitive. And, be sure to be on the lookout for our card and vote for us, because get your boys over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this definitely was the most competitive draft that we have done.
Yeah, we still smoked them. So
yeah.
Speaking of plugs, we're going to jump into our first topic here, which is Will Ospreay and the locker room unrest that's going on in New Japan. I was on One Nation Radio yesterday evening. That episode has dropped on the feed. So, once you get done with this episode, if you haven't listened to that and you still want to get more New Japan, discussion, hop on over there and check out everything that we kind of talked about. Pretty interesting stuff. But I think we should definitely jump into it, because I think, for one kind of fan, this is exactly what's on their mind. For another type of fan, I don't know that they're even aware of this, or are just now becoming aware that this has even been a thing, basically.
Right. So, also the big news on May 20th, New Japan announced that Will Ospreay was vacating the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship due to a neck injury suffered in the May 4th match with Shingo Takagi, and is going home to recuperate. And when that news story broke, even more news started coming out on what might really be going on with Will Ospreay and behind the scenes in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, that was last week, literally like the day after our episode dropped, and I was like, oh man, we're, not that it's about us, but the timing just wasn't fortuitous for, this show, because I was like, I'd really like to kind of discuss this when it's fresh in the minds of people. And, we're going to have to wait a week, and who knows if it's, what's going to be going on by that point. But as time has gone on, like, the layers of this onion to this story have just been peeled back more and more. And even still, many layers still remain, because we don't have all the information or all the details, but we can definitely talk about what we know, what we think, what we are hearing, the speculations, and the, there's contradictory, opinions and sources to this whole thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of question on Will's actual status. Fumi Saito from the Pacific Rim podcast over at F4WOnline.com, he said on his podcast that he wouldn't be surprised if Will Ospreay was NXT UK bound. And so that stirred up a lot of conversation on whether or not Will is actually injured. Did he just, kind of flee the country and drop the belt? And so we've been hearing a lot of things, a lot of different reports. I mean, essentially, what we're hearing is, obviously the Road to Wrestle Grand Slam shows were canceled, along with the Yokohama Stadium and Tokyo Dome show. Gaijin talent were told that they could go home, and then kind of last minute they decided to, I guess they got clearance to do these Road 2 shows that have been happening the last couple days. Told Gaijin talent they need to, stay. Will Ospreay was not happy about that. He's like, I'm going back to the UK. And the reports on his injuries, there are some people saying, he is kind of banged up, just like how Okada's banged up, Ibushi's banged up, Naito's banged up. He's hurt, but not to the point of where he couldn't have continued wrestling. And there's rumors that the plan was for him, obviously, to drop the title to Okada. He was going to get time off for the Summer Struggle Tour. And then all that was also leading to the locker room unrest. A lot of the Gaijin were kind of upset about the quarantining process and how that's all happening and being told to stay. A lot of miscommunication. Two top Gaijin, it's been reported that Jay White and Dave Finlay were tested positive for COVID, and they're being now quarantined at the dojo. And then just a lot of upset with the roster right now in the locker room.
Yeah, and a lot of the information that's out there is due to the work from Voices of Wrestling and the Voice of Wrestling podcast. So, credit to those guys. But yeah, Jeremy, I think you did a pretty good job there, kind of, boiling down what's been going on. One of the more recent developments, even just today, Will Ospreay kind of tweeted out a picture of the x-rays of his neck. And this is amidst the speculation as to the status of his health and the status of his, basically employment with the company, which is all in flux. I mean, maybe there's not a story here, but, nobody's quite sure exactly what's going on. I'm not a medical expert, so I don't know. When I saw the x-ray of his neck, like, it didn't look like anything to me one way or the other, because I don't have the the trained, medical technical acumen to assess what that was. We were in a group chat and a couple of the guys were kind of trying to show me how the discs might be herniated or, compressed. And that seems to kind of be the issue. But I was on Twitter, and, I don't normally take my medical advice from Twitter, but I saw people commenting and they were like, oh, he's barely got a neck. He's barely got a neck anymore. And I was like, really? I don't know what it just looks like an x-ray, I'm kind of the same way with like sonograms. So people are like, there's my baby. I'm like, where? I don't know what I'm looking at when I see that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, I just don't know. But apparently from what people are saying, it looks bad. But I think that what I've heard from people who kind of have a little bit of knowledge on this thing, the actual x-rays seem to corroborate what we do know. So the reports basically mentioned that Will's been banged up for a while. His neck, he'd been having some issues. There were even early preliminary reports of him having suffered an injury during the Shingo match, specifically off one of the shooting star presses that it was giving him like neck and shoulder issues. And that was even mentioned by Dave Meltzer the day of or the day after. So we kind of knew that there was something there. But the most recent reports basically have stated, and keep in mind, this stuff could change as we get more information, but what we know right now is that the trainers at New Japan had looked at him. Everyone's in agreement that he does have a neck issue. I think where the breakdown is how bad is that neck issue? The reports we're hearing now are that it wasn't bad enough to where he wasn't cleared to wrestle. He could still wrestle, and the plan was to go into the Yokohama show, or I'm sorry, the
Tokyo Dome show.
The Tokyo Dome show, and have him drop the belt to Okada, right? And then give him the time off, sort of like what you mentioned. But, a week ago when they stripped him of the title, they didn't specify, but I mean, it sounded like it was really serious. It's like his neck is messed up. We have to take the title off him. And one has to wonder, what the motivations were to kind of phrase it that way. And because it sounded to me like, oh shit, like his neck's fucked. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
But then we heard he was in England getting rehab. And I'm like, rehab? Not surgery,
Right.
You're getting the title stripped and not surgery. Like, this doesn't seem to make sense. And you traveled internationally with a hurt neck. That was like the first red flag. And basically what the reports are saying now is that he was told he could go home when they thought the shows were canceled. Then suddenly, like you mentioned, the 6 Road 2 shows, or 7, the non-televised one, were announced, and all the foreign talent were asked to stay and to work. And at that point, there was dispute, and he left. And some of the reasons that have been cited were both physical as well as personal and emotional. What that may be, we don't know specifically, but that kind of put the company in a place where they felt the need to strip him. One other thing of note is it's been confirmed recently that Taichi as well as Kazuchika Okada were amongst the 2 that tested positive for COVID. And so this all is kind of happening at the same time as Okada tested positive and, kind of wasn't available for that Tokyo Dome show as well. So I think that's also part of the issue with Will is like, they're asking him to stay and work. His neck's bad. He doesn't have an opponent lined up. The shows, the Tokyo Dome and the Yokohama Stadium show aren't happening or are being postponed. And for whatever reason, he left. And now the title is stripped. And now we're left with a lot of questions.
Yeah, and something else to note, on Twitter, somebody asked the official RevPro account, if Will's going to have to, drop the RevPro title, how that affects the RevPro title situation. And they were pretty much like, well, Will's going to, on a future show, probably come and address what's going on with him. And for right now, they're not stripping him of the title because that doesn't affect any of their current tapings or bookings. Because obviously, they were doing that tournament to get
right.
the SWE champion. That guy would have faced Will for a unification match. I'm not sure where they are with that tournament right now, but yeah, they had no plans right away for any Rev Pro title matches. So for right now, he will remain Rev Pro champion. Something else to bring into discussion too is there's reports of him and B. Priestley breaking up and B going back to the UK. It's heavily rumored that she's going to be starting with NXT UK sometime in the near future.
Yeah, either NXT or NXT UK, some facet of WWE. That's the assumed thing. And so yeah, I mean that's another element to this. It is speculation, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that is a factor in this decision to go home. One of the things in the report that were mentioned not just by Fumi Saito initially, but also by Voice of Wrestling on their Patreon, they mentioned that there's belief within the company, including wrestlers as well as office members, that Will is leaving the company to join NXT UK. Now, keep in mind, it was reported in 2019 that he had signed a 5-year deal. Whether that's been confirmed or what the details of that are,
right. Well, he tweeted out on 2019, I think it was around August. He tweeted out, I'm property of the Lion Mark for the next 5 years. So everybody assumed that meant that he signed a 5-year contract. Also, we have no idea if that was a contract, a handshake deal, what that exactly means.
Right. We don't really know. And, there was a wild speculation earlier this year about Jay White's contract situation. And a lot of people were wrong in that matter. So that's why I'm kind of hesitant to place any sort of assumptions on contract status, especially since we don't know the intimate details. But,
especially for New Japan just being it's so weird for them to do multi-year contracts.
That's what I was thinking. When I heard it about Jay White, it kind of made sense because they're grooming him for so long and he's dojo boy and everything. And I was like, I guess it's possible. But, it is not really, it hasn't been their MO. They've typically stuck to 1 or 2 year deals for the most part. I'm not saying it's out that they couldn't have done it, but yeah, that's strange. So, but if we were to believe that tweet means exactly what it sounds like on its face value, yeah, he's got a 5-year contract. But yeah, there's people that are in the company that are saying that they believe he's going to NXT UK. One of the things with that report, though, was that there seems to be a lack of – this could be a mistake because there seems to be a lack of understanding within the company and possibly even within the office as to what NXT UK even is. And they may be confusing NXT UK with WWE or NXT proper.
Right.
So that's kind of where we're at. And again, this is in the midst of other unrest that is and it's conjointly connected. Like there's other unrest within the company, both domestic and foreign talent, and there's rumors kind of circulating and spreading that come January when contracts are up, there's going to be a lot of domestic or foreign talent that are maybe going to be exploring their options.
Right. There's rumors going around. We're going to see a kind of a big Gaijin leaving, Gaijin walk off in January. Typically in January, the last several years, especially with NXT trying to play keep away and AEW building, we've always been seeing last several years now several Gaijin talent, even several of domestic New Japan talent leaving to go to WWE, NXT, AEW. And so, with all this chaos or, unrest that's happening in the locker room right now and people being unhappy, the whole COVID situation in Japan right now, and just the lack to have fans at shows and just how the quarantine process, there could be some guys like, I'm over with this. I don't want to do this anymore, and we'll explore their options. And even Finley was on a podcast recently talking about obviously his son, David Finley, and his troubles with the quarantining and what's going on in Japan, that David Finley might be looking at his options come when his contract's up.
Yeah, some of the things that people are upset about, there's a lot of things to kind of unpack here, and I think it's a little bit of a long time coming. And keep in mind, it's not just the foreign talent, it's domestic as well. One of the things, and it was pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back, was the cancellations, and then the COVID outbreak, followed by them telling everybody they could go home, and then suddenly the announcement of these most recent string of Road 2 shows. And part of the issue, one of the reports I had heard was that the talent were not notified that they were going to have to work these tours. They found out when the announcement was made public at the same time as us, so like when NJPW 1972.com put that information out there, that's when the talent were like contacted and told like, hey, you got to work these shows. We want you guys to stay. And, Japan's not the biggest country in the world, but even for domestic talent, they don't all live in the same area. I'm sure travel with the travel restrictions, living inside of a bubble, the quarantining, that kind of applies to them too, Mm-hmm. So there's that aspect of it. And then with the domestic talent, with the foreign talent, same thing, but it's kind of exasperated. It's like they're coming into the country and they're having a quarantine for 2 weeks at a time. In the past, we'd heard reports of them spending that whole time in hotels. I think most recently with the COVID outbreak, they were talking about some of them doing it in the dojo, which was not received well.
Yeah.
But then, on top of that, they're like living in a bubble. So, they're spending all this time away from their families in a foreign country, quarantining, basically living, completely exiled from, the public to the best of their ability so that they can perform. And then the shows are empty. The booking is heat heavy. People are getting, have gotten sick with COVID, the cancellations, the houses are down. The creative is all over the place. We've talked about the issues with them being like a heat heavy company this past year with the booking and all the like different audibles they've had to call over the year, over the past year. And I think it's just something that's starting to wear on people. And one of the things I was told was, they keep telling the talent, just hold out a little bit longer and we'll get past this. But with the fact that the Olympics are coming up and they're getting into even harsher and stricter guidelines due to the fact that the Olympics are upcoming, it doesn't seem that there's any end in sight. In fact, we were told by one of our listeners, we were sent an AP press release where it talked about they might go into harsher, lockdowns until like July, probably because of the Olympics and because of the outbreaks and everything. So it's like, where's it end? You know what I mean? And then you look across the pond and across the world and you see what's happening in America and everything's opening up and people are starting to return to shows and travel and everything like that. And it's probably, it's just a huge contrast between those two things.
Right. It feels like New Japan and just Japan in general are going backwards when they were the ones at the beginning of the pandemic that was handling everything so well, shut down for 3 months, came back to the empty arena, then limited crowds, had to wear masks, could only clap, and they were kind of picking back up steam. We got Tokyo Dome, everything seemed like it was kind of, moving forward and getting better. But then, for whatever reason, COVID cases are spiking, and now they're kind of going backward. They had to cancel shows. There's more restrictions. The U.S. has put out an advisory telling people not to travel to Japan right now, and so there's just so much going on. Like you mentioned, the Olympics are supposed to be happening, and they're trying really hard to get cases down and to make sure everything is as safe as possible so that the Olympics can run. And all that is just throwing New Japan up in a flux. And so everything that's happening with New Japan right now, it's a mix of COVID stuff, which is obviously they can't control, but like you mentioned as well, just some bad booking decisions, some miscommunication. It's like the perfect storm of everything bad happening from things they control and things they cannot control.
I think like one of the things I'd heard was the older, more seasoned domestic talent felt like disrespected when they were not notified by the office that they were going to have to stay and do this most recent string of shows, and so I think there seems to be a breakdown in communication between management and talent, which is not helping the situation,
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the cases now. I don't want to be presumptuous because I'm not there. I don't know exactly how the country's dealing with everything, but it's been the one thing I can say is like, it's been a long year. So, I don't know if that is one of the contributing factors because it doesn't look like these numbers started to rise until like November, and they started peaking in January and then came back down around March, and now we're in May and they're actually trending down again. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not part of the like Ministry of Health or anything like that for them. So, but my one feeling is that like the PP has worked. It's shown to work from what, all the studies and everything we've seen. And, the real world example of the shows they did all last year and the contact tracing, they didn't find any, contributed cases or contracted viruses from the New Japan shows. So that's why I'm a little bit like, I get why they're doing it. I honestly don't even know if maybe it is. I'm just a I'm a pessimist, so I'm like, is it about the public health or is it about, Japan being able to host the Olympics? That's what I feel like it's more about than anything else.
Yeah, and also, that they want that money that comes with having the Olympics and the prestige of hosting the Olympics. So, I can see why you're thinking that, and I'm sure that does have.
Well, that's the crazy thing. We talked about it yesterday, and like James was saying, like the Olympics is a money loser. Typically speaking, like it doesn't make money for the country. I'd have to kind of look into that. I'm not the biggest like buff on the Olympics, but he was saying, it's more like the prestige of being one of the countries that were selected to host it. That's kind of where the honor is. As it's not really about what it brings into the country necessarily, which it could be right or could be wrong. I don't know, but either way, I mean, they're dead set on doing it. Obviously,
right.
It got postponed last year, so.
Yeah, and back to Will Ospreay, there are people in the company who believe he's not leaving New Japan and will be remaining.
Yeah, I mean, the closest sources that we have, I've spoken to individuals who I believe are very reliable, and they've told me flat out he's not leaving at all. And other podcasts and other news sources have said the same thing, and have even alluded to the idea that there are wrestlers in the company, Japanese wrestlers included, who know for a fact or are stating wholeheartedly that with full confidence that he is coming back to the country and remaining with the company. So there is kind of a conflicting thing there, because there are credible sources on both sides. One saying that there's smoke to the fire, the other one saying it's just a bunch of hot air.
Yeah, it's very interesting that so many credible sources and news outlets are kind of getting conflicting information. So it's hard to know what to believe. One side is definitely getting worked, and so it's very interesting. We just had the Brian Pillman Dark Side of the Ring and kind of reliving that whole him working Eric Bischoff to get the release from WCW. Is there some kind of work going on here? And is Will Ospreay really leaving? As he like we talked about off air? What can they really do to him? Like they already stripped him of the title. Like they can't force him to stay in the country.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of repercussions there would be long term. I mean, let's say hypothetically, just for an example, if he went to like say AEW, where would their allegiance be hypothetically? Would it be to sign this world-class talent that's available, or would they, say no because he has a contract and that might cause legal issues? Or is this budding like beginning of a friendship / partnership between the companies like more important than kind of crossing a big company like New Japan? And I think that kind of applies across the board. So I mean that's another aspect that maybe people aren't thinking of, but I don't think WWE, for instance, has that same sort of conundrum,
Right.
And I don't know what New Japan could do, because I don't know what the laws really are when it comes to contracts like that, like across, international lines. So I mean, a contract's great and everything, but how can you can't make someone work for you if they don't want to. So let's say if they might even be inclined, if he hypothetically asked for a release, they might just give it to him, because I don't know if hypothetically the feelings were really bad between the two, there's bad blood, maybe they don't want to use him anymore,
Right.
And they might gladly give him that release.
Yeah, and it could be, very similar to like the Pac situation, where Pac was like, what, I'm jobbing Enzo, screw this, I'm out of here, I'm going home, I don't care I don't care, I'm under contract.
Right, and eventually it worked itself out, because there's a contract and that's all well and good, but you can't make somebody go to work.
Right.
A contract's great and all. And I think one of the reasons we don't really know what happens here is because, we've never seen this side of it, where we've never seen that side of it play out, where someone signed to a contract with New Japan and then decides to sit out. And I'm not saying that's what's happening, but in that event, I don't know what the end game basically is.
Right. So yeah, and that's pretty much where we're at now. Obviously, Ospreay's out, not in Japan. He's back in the UK. And one of the things I just thought about too, I know a lot of people are kind of thinking, it doesn't make sense for him to go to NXT UK, but if he really wants to just stay in the UK and not go to the US, when he worked Ring of Honor in the US, he didn't have a good time here, and so if his focus is staying in the UK, we've seen with guys like Walter that getting a big deal to stay in the UK and work that NXT UK brand. I could see them giving Ospreay the same kind of contract as Walter, because Walter is able to continue to do his WXW stuff and do other stuff in the UK. They can give Ospreay a similar deal, and he may perhaps continue to work for Rev Pro and other UK companies while being a part of NXT UK.
It's a possibility, if that was his aim or goal. I think it's just very the timing of this is very, and I don't want to blame it all on like backstage politic things. Like his neck really might be messed up. There might be other things going on in his life where he decided to go home. I do think, however, it's a little bit ironic considering what happened with him and Sadie Gibbs in Japan. And, the allegations of bullying because she left the tour due to a death in the family. And now they're citing personal reasons for him leaving right at the height of the biggest push of his entire career. And I'm not saying that in a vindictive way. I'm saying it's truly ironic. Like it actually is. But I mean, there's a lot to kind of consider. I mean, on the one hand, if he's really banged up and really hurt, we don't know the extent of these injuries. If they are more serious than we know at the current time, I mean, my thoughts go out to him and his family, and I hope that works itself out, or any other personal matters that he has. And I can see it from both sides. I see it from his side. I also see it from the company side, but I see where they both might potentially be in the wrong. And that's where I kind of think the truth might be somewhere in the middle. But one thing I will say, if the company is upset with him and it makes them look bad, this hypothetically could be the end of Will in New Japan. I'm just saying, like, I say that because we saw, like, dude, Loki wore a suit one time at the Tokyo Dome, a suit, and then they never brought him back again.
Yeah.
Like, and they never will. Like, they're not going to.
Right. And we've seen, for so long with the treatment of guys like Okada and TNA, how long that they hated TNA and Impact, even when management changed, even with the same people not in charge, how much they hated TNA. It's just now, recently, that they've opened back up communications with Impact and are allowing guys to work there. But it had been, years and years and years of.
It's like someone told them, like, no, it's a different management crew, and they're like, oh, it's different? And like, yeah, we told you this 3 years ago and we tried to apologize. I don't remember that, but you guys are different now. We might do business. There are a couple things that give me hope, though, for Will in the company. One, the way that the company announced this, they really put the story out there that he was significantly hurt. I don't know if that's to save face for the company or to maybe hold on to Will, to kind of give him a plausible out in this situation and make it seem like, hey, he's so banged up that we are, hands were tied. We couldn't do anything else. And at that point, it's like, it's understandable and it gets simpy on the man. So there is that aspect of it. But, that could also just serve the best interests of the company, possibly.
Right. That could be the best, like, kayfabe booking option they had.
Right. The other thing is, I think Will is in a unique position because he has a lot of things going for him right now, in the fact that he was the head of the United Empire. Sure, he could get replaced, but, up until this moment, they were the hottest act in the company. He was carrying the company on his back. he's in this 2-man race with Shingo for Wrestler of the Year in the company. I think the way things are going, he's probably gonna, if this doesn't happen, he's, primed to be that guy. But from a business perspective, I mean, they got the unified title on him, and there's 2 to 3 years of major mega blockbuster matches with him and all kinds of guys. And they've been protecting and saving a lot of those matches for this run for him. And, you take him off the board. Are there other talented guys waiting in the wings that could step up? Maybe they're not Will Ospreay, but they could go into the limelight. Sure. But they don't have the years of history and investment that the company has put into him. And they don't have necessarily the protection of big money matches the same way that he did. And so ultimately, this is a wrestling business. I don't know that they would completely throw the baby out with the bathwater in this situation, especially with, I'm not saying the company's like done or anything, but COVID has taken a major hit on them financially from where they were prior to COVID happening, Yeah, so that's another thing.
Yeah, they were doing, record numbers, double Tokyo Domes, and COVID hits. And, what I've been hearing is, they have a number goal of people. Like,
right.
They just need to get X amount of people in buildings for the rest of the year. That's why we're getting a bunch of these Cork and Hall shows. Even though there might be only, 200, 300 people, that adds to their tally of people that they need to get in the building for the year. And so we're going to keep seeing more shows, and so they can hit that number and get more people, because they know people are going to come. So even just getting a couple hundred every day works in helping them get revenue and hit that number goal of people they want for shows.
Yeah, and I think that's another issue that the talent have, is that they're working an accelerated schedule due to the fact that the company is running more and more shows to make up for the losses from limited attendance numbers. But, the shows are very much what we've kind of described here on this show. Is like, there's not a lot of character development. There's not a lot of, character growth. There's not great stories being told, feuds, things like that. And the crowds are, minuscule at this point. I mean, this most recent string of tapings were like maybe the worst I've seen in 3 years. It's not totally their fault, but, it's not good. And I think a lot of the talent are just like, what's going on with our characters, what's going on with the booking, the vibe in the company, the feelings from the fans. And then we're asked to work exponentially more to make up for the fact that we aren't drawing the way we were 2 years ago,
Right.
And they have to live in the bubble, and they have to quarantine and everything like that, So, I mean, this is something that I think originally we hoped would be kind of cleared out in 6 months, 3 months. And it's like, it's been well over a year now, and it's still ongoing. And the sad truth is, in Japan, there is no end in sight due to the fact that they're not doing the vaccines.
Right, yeah, there's been a very slow rollout of the vaccines. I did see a news story today that the Tokyo Dome is going to be used for mass vaccinations in August. So that's still a couple months away. So, I mean, hopefully that's something that kind of gets a large number of people vaccinated. But as of right now, yeah, it's been a very slow rollout. Not many people are getting vaccinated. And so also that works against them right now.
It's also a cultural thing, from what I understand. It's not something that has been widely done in the past when it comes to vaccinations, from what I understand, Japan. So, culturally, it's just one of those things where, like, it's just not part of their everyday lives, And so getting people to adopt it was not quite as easy as it was, like, say, here in the States.
Yeah. I think that pretty much covers a lot of the angles here. We got a ton of questions that I think will help us continue to kind of flush out what's been going on in New Japan right now. First comes from One Nation Radio's Rich Latta. He says, "Is this the most chaotic NJPW has been since Brock Lesnar?"
Very well could be. I mean, that period was, pretty crazy for sure. But I mean, I'd be lying to say that I watched New Japan diligently during, the 05, 06 period. I was aware of what was happening, and I eventually got around to seeing those matches, but it's just so much harder to keep up with the company. Prior to World, keeping up with New Japan was not an easy task, So I don't know that I think like we'd probably have to go back through like Observers and, Pacific Rim pods and things like that to kind of get a true feeling on, the tumultuous past of New Japan over the past 15, 20 years. But right now, this is one of the more tumultuous times in New Japan history in like the past 5 to 10 years for sure.
Yeah. And also kind of a very I'm not quite as similar, but also, Brock, taking the title, not coming back. And so also they're able to get the title from Will here, but kind of a similar situation with a top guy just leaving. Next question here from Reddy. Why did you do that, bro? He says, if there's a singles match for the vacant IWGP World Heavyweight Championship at Dominion, who would be the two best guys to put in that match? I would think Okada would be one of them, considering he was the next challenger before Ospreay vacated.
Yeah. I think it depends on what you want to do, really. I think part of the idea was to make Okada's winning the title a very meaningful thing. And so, sure, you could have him be in the match for the vacant title and then win it outright. But at that point, unless it's against someone super significant, like maybe say Naito or Ibushi, I don't know. I don't know what that really means for him. When I spoke with Rich and James yesterday, I said if this was their idea, they might want to instead crown a new champion, wait some time. I'm not saying they need to wait till January for the Tokyo Dome, but that is an option, or maybe prior to then. And then have the new champion have a defense or two, and then drop it to Okada, on one of the major shows. If that's what you're trying to do, that's another option.
Yeah, I mean, it's very kind of hard to kind of picture out what exactly their game plan is, what they're trying to doing. I mean, honestly, I think that the two best guys to probably have a match at Dominion would be Kazuchika Okada and Shingo Takagi. Obviously, Okada was already in line for a title shot. Shingo had the last title shot. He was kind of in the mix with the whole, rivalry there of Ospreay. And I think it could make a lot of sense for those two guys to be the ones to face off at Dominion. They've already had two previous great matches, so the match will be great. You can put it on Dominion, a big stage, kind of raise the prestige of Dominion again. And I think
I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest with you. And for this reason, from a kayfabe perspective, Shingo lost the New Japan Cup final to Will, and then got a title shot afterwards, and then lost that as well. So for him to come off the heels, and sure, from a quality standpoint, those were fantastic matches, but from like the AEW wins and losses matter sort of perspective, I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like he lost his two biggest matches back to back in recent history. I don't know. I mean, again, yeah, I get it. It's New Japan and it's not always a meritocracy, but I'm kind of just the only way I think you could spin that is I saw Shingo say something where he was like, I lost the match, but I won the war.
Yeah.
Because he took out Will. And so maybe if you want to spin it that way, be like he sidelined Will, so that makes him deserving. But I'm like, yeah, but you took the 1, 2, 3 twice.
Yeah.
In succession. So that's my feelings about it. I think one of the things too is like one of the answers in the past would have easily been like, okay, well, let's do a 4-man tournament. But it's like they've done so many of those gold dashes at the Tokyo Dome in recent history that it feels like we've gotten a bunch of, short order 4-man, 3-man tournaments back, in recent times, that it's like, I don't know if that's the best thing or the worst thing they could do.
Right. Next question here from Viking Pans, a series of questions here. First question, it says, who should be the next world champion, and why is it Shingo Takagi? No, you just mentioned Josh, you weren't really in favor of Shingo winning the title because obviously he just lost his 2 big matches, and I definitely see that point. But I think from a consistency standpoint, Shingo has great matches with everybody. I think he's very reliable. I think the Ospreay matches has elevated his stock, and I think he's a guy that you can kind of trust, and I think it would bring some upward momentum in a positive swing with a guy like Shingo having the title, at least for a temporary time.
It could. And, there's probably some truth to the idea that you need to strike when the iron's hot. And he's one of the things in the company that does feel hot right now. And, he's not a spring chicken either. So maybe, tomorrow's not promised. So maybe it is the best thing to do. But my feeling had been long-term based on just the historical booking of Gato, with all these major losses that he's had against Ospreay, it just indicates to me that at some point he was going to get that big win. Now, they could go the Sonata route, the Sonata-Okada route, where Sonata finally beats Okada, but it's in a G1, and, it's not for a title.
Right.
They could have gone that way, but it was my feeling that down the line at some point, not now, but maybe a year from now, or even further than that, when Ospreay's maybe, let's say, in his second reign, Shingo becomes the guy that unseats him. And it's a major deal. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't know if that was, let's say, hypothetically, that's the plan. And I feel it's my belief that is the plan.
Yeah,
I don't
especially
know.
Since he's already beaten Will in a G1. So I don't think beating him again in a G1 would be that big of a deal.
Right. So it's my feeling that it's so do you want to throw that away by putting the strap on him now and foregoing the big money making payoff that you might get down the road? But yeah, you bring up logical reasons that maybe it's time for them to just go with him. Some of the same reasons that, for instance, I know Sir Sam, shout out to him. He wrote an article. He was asking, I think he's probably got a question here about it, but he wrote an article about Tomohiro Ishii. And I think a lot of the reasonings that he kind of provided for why someone like Ishii should be champion in this moment, I don't fully agree with that statement, but I think you could apply a lot of those reasonings to Shingo, Yeah. But I just feel like those 2 losses are what hurt him right now.
Right. Since you mentioned, let's jump to it. Sir Sam's question, he says, what are your thoughts on my idea that Ishii should be the man of the moment of NJPW?
I don't think so at all. Not even a little bit. I wouldn't even begin to entertain that idea. And here's why. Do I think that there is room and space for Ishii to be the guy to hold the strap? I do. But unfortunately, I do see it as a Nakanishi-esque, thank you for your service. We're going to honor you and give you the big one once sort of run. I don't see it as we're going to give you the strap and let you carry the company in a time of dire straits. And I don't see them building around Ishii. I don't see them drawing around Ishii. I think he's an integral, important part of the company, but he cannot be the guy that carries the company when shit hits the fan right now, unfortunately. And I mean, I'm saying this as Ishii's probably one of my top 2 or 3 favorite guys in the company, but it just business wise, it does not make sense. The same way how I didn't think last year that they should be putting the title on Evil, that he was the wrong guy for that time. I think Ishii is the wrong guy for this time as well, though the matches would probably be awesome.
Right. Like you mentioned, it's still a business, and as much as we all love Ishii, I'm not sure putting the title on him right now would be the thing that kind of helps business.
Even if the matches were 5 stars, right, across the board, just critically acclaimed, and even if the storylines were super compelling and everything, I just don't, because of the way that they've portrayed him over the past years, and also because right now, at this moment, he's in the middle of a 6-man tag unit and there's no heat behind him, Now, if the situation was different and Ishii was rampaging and beating guys, then maybe I'd feel different about this. But right now, because we need a champion in the next month? No.
Yeah, and I think
No.
I think that's the edge that Shingo has over a guy like Ishii. Even though he's lost the 2 Will matches, he still had a lot of momentum. He did well in the New Japan Cup. Got to the final. He beat Okada in the first round. He beat a lot of big people. He had a tough road in that New Japan Cup. He's had amazing matches all year. So I think he's a little bit more hot right now. There's a little bit more fuel on that Shingo fire, where I would go Shingo over Ishii.
Yeah, and also we don't know who is completely available because there have been certain talents that are still kind of sidelined during these Road 2 shows, and one has to assume it's probably because of the COVID protocols and everything like that. But to kind of answer these questions and to go back to an earlier question, if it was me and I was going to have 2 guys right now fight for the title, I think I'd probably do Kota Ibushi or Naito, one or the other, against Minoru Suzuki, and I would put the title on Minoru Suzuki.
Yeah, I heard you talk about that on One Nation Radio yesterday. Hey, it kind of fits the pure theme of Olds on top. So,
my whole thinking with it is like there's a built-in storyline of Suzuki's never held the big one in New Japan. He's a believable entity at being the guy that carries the title. And, we're kind of in a sticky situation where the person who's at top does need to be a draw, but they don't need to be an out of this world draw. In fact, they probably shouldn't necessarily be one right now, given the fact that they're a live touring company and they can't do that many big numbers because of the shutdowns and the quarantines and the curfews and everything. I feel like he makes sense to me as someone who can have great matches, draw within this particular realm, beat guys and it not hurt anybody, and then drop the belt to someone like Okada and he'll be totally fine at the end of it. And I think of his, it's been his most recent world title run was the GHC title run in 2015. They did big business, but I'm also thinking about he was very credible as the Never champion, the IC champion in recent years. I don't see why he couldn't be the one to carry the belt. And it would be something fresh and new, but familiar all at the same time, Right. And any world title matches that they do during that run wouldn't be protected matches. I'm pretty sure Suzuki's wrestled everybody on the roster already, in for the most part. So that would pretty much, those matches would matter. They'd be big deals. Let's say they do him and Tanahashi, for instance. Yeah, we've seen it lots of times, but it's still going to do business. But you're not blowing a Tokyo Dome match or a G1 final, if that makes sense. So that's what I would do. I feel like it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. Back to Viking Pain. He says, has Obari dropped the ball as a president of NJPW, and how much stock do you put into the foreign mutiny story and the rumored foreign exodus that could happen in January?
I think it's probably, relevant in the fact that we've seen a lot of times in the past, regardless of whether things were good or bad in Japan, where foreign talent have walked, and we're not just talking about the elite. We're talking about every year it happens. AJ
Styles, Nakamura, Gallows and Anderson,
Lance Archer,
Finn Balor.
Ricochet.
Yeah.
Lots of examples. So it's happened many times. So, with that being considered, plus we're hearing it from multiple sources, plus, the David Finlay example or Fit Finlay example. I think there's probably some truth to it. And I think I don't see it as being a wild speculation personally, considering the sources.
Right. As far as Obari, I'm not sure if we can really say that he's dropped the ball. I'm not sure, if he's the main one with the miscommunication issues that are happening between, him and Gato's crew and the talent. He was thrusted into a very difficult situation, taking over a company in the middle of a pandemic.
This is something where we heard a lot of speculation about what was going on in the company when Harold May was president. And we haven't heard a lot of speculation about Obari, but the reality is most people don't really know what's going on from that perspective. So, I mean, I couldn't tell you if Obari's doing a good job or not. Some of these issues could have been, because of his predecessor and because of the COVID outbreak, or it could be directly related to him. I don't really know. I don't think anyone credible would tell you that they know either, unless they had firsthand knowledge.
Right. This next question: do you guys think that with all these COVID vaccine issues in Japan, New Japan should start sending more Japanese talent to the U.S. to work strong and to get vaccinated? Arizona, Louisiana, and Texas will give vaccinations to foreign travelers.
Yeah, I've heard about these, destination vacations, like holidays to America. I think Florida might be one of the states too. I'm not totally sure, but yeah, I mean, the reality is in this country, for the most part, we're past the point of the supply is outpacing the demand. And for those who are in other parts of the world who want to get vaccinated but can't because they don't have access to it, some of them are taking trips to America so they can be on vacation and get vaccinated simultaneously. So yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea. I don't know if they're allowed to do it, but if they are, great,
Yeah, there are already some people who are calling, Nagata working strong and Dynamite, and now Kojima working Impact. They're calling this, the New Japan Dad Vaccination Tour. Getting some of these, older guys to America, work strong, work Impact, work AEW, get vaccinated while you're here, then go back. So I'm not sure if Nagata.
Isn't it kind of crazy that none of them are working ROH? It's
very interesting.
Yeah, no one's really talking about that, but yeah, they're here, they're working these shows, but they're not working ROH. So that's weird. What terrible thing or booking decision will it finally take for you to start your own mutiny and exodus from New Japan? Mine would be a zombie lumberjack match. And I don't know. I mean, right now, I'm already at the point where I kind of said this to Rich off the air. I was we were talking about Noah, and I was like, dude, I can't watch Noah because if I'm watching Noah and and it's really fucking good, I might not come with the same kind of energy that I come to Keepin It Strong Style with, Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a tell in and of itself. My interest is at probably one of the lowest points it's been since we've ever done this podcast, but it's because the creative direction of the show is lacking. The matches are repetitive. The talent pool is waning. The stars are aging. It's just, we're in a lull right now, and it's this fucking COVID. It's this fucking, virus.
Right, and that's for me the thing that I'm still kind of holding out hope for. It's you rewind to February 2020, New Japan was on top of the world. You had Jon Moxley defending against Minoru Suzuki. Just did double Tokyo Domes. There were so many great things that were getting lined up and planning to happen before the pandemic, and I know there have been questionable booking decisions since they've restarted, but I still think, if there was no COVID, we'd be seeing more mocks. We'd be seeing an influx of the New Japan strong guys like Leo Rush and Dickinson and Lawler coming into the country. We'd be seeing some fresh matchups that way. We'd be getting our best super juniors and having all these cool juniors come in. So,
yeah, it's I don't want to make anyone feel like I'm even considering, stopping my coverage or viewing of the product, but I'm pretty lax right now. If I miss a Road to show, or not maybe miss it, but if I just kind of skim through it, I'm pretty much okay with it because as we're about to probably discuss here in a minute, there's not a lot happening.
Right. But to answer his question, yeah, if there is a zombie lumberjack match like there was at WrestleMania Backlash, yeah, I think I would be tuning out of New Japan.
I'm trying to think of what's the thing I hate most in wrestling. I don't know what it is though. Oh, I mean, if they bring women in to wrestle, No, I'm just playing.
Lowe's has more of what trade pros like you need to get the job done. That means more delivery options, more convenient hours to fit your schedule, and more savings to fit your budget. More of the brands you trust the most. More of everything you need, all in one place. That's why, in the past year, more electricians, landscapers, painters, plumbers, and other pros helped make Lowe's the new home for trade pros. U.S. only.
Zenni's blocks lenses help to protect the eyes by keeping harmful blue light out. Because they're virtually clear, add blocks to any Zenni frame for stylish, all-day protection. Get a complete pair of prescription or non-prescription blocks glasses starting at just $24. Protect your eyes now at Zenni.com.
That's just a joke. I like women's wrestling. I don't know. I really don't know what it would take. Who knows?
Yeah, it would have to go to really bad lows.
The Peaky Blinder asked us, do you think the new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion should be determined by who wins the G1? Or will the G1 be too late in the year for this? Could the G1 be moved? Is it even possible to plan a G1 or even a tournament in this pandemic situation where things seem to be changing on a week-to-week basis? This is a great question.
Yeah, I think if the G1 was sooner, I think the G1 could have been a really cool way to crown a new champion. It would add some, more spice to the G1. Like, not only are you getting a G1 winner, the winner's getting the title. I think it would, just add that, extra.
And there's no briefcase.
Right, yeah, no briefcase.
Oh,
so,
God,
yeah.
I'm so over the briefcase.
But unfortunately, it seems like the G1's going to be in the fall again due to the Olympics trying to run again. So I think, waiting until, September, October is way too late to try and crown a new champion. They need to crown a champion before then.
That'd be a detriment to the product and the brand. So yeah, I don't think that's a possibility. But I do think that his question is very interesting. Provided things don't change and there's a lot more uncertainty with the situation come G1 time. I mean, what will they do? What if people are getting sick and having to quarantine and leave shows? And I mean, the tour last year, the tour was like what, a month and a half, 2 months? Yeah. I mean, what if someone's out for a quarter of that and they lose 3 or 4 matches, 5 matches, I don't know. Like, these are some eventualities I think they need to kind of prepare themselves for from a booking standpoint, because it's like, are they even going to have enough guys active and ready to go in the country come that time period, Because typically when they do the G1, it's like the biggest drawing cards that they do for the whole touring season all year long. And it's like, what if they can't even fill Cork and Hall? What if they're doing 200 to 300 people for fucking G1 shows? You know what I mean?
Right.
That sounds disgusting to me. And yeah, from a business standpoint, I don't know. I think they need to kind of be asking themselves this very question right now.
Yeah, and it might be something where they might need to take a Ring of Honor approach and maybe have some kind of talent bubble set up where there's some kind of location where all of the talent are staying and not letting them kind of go back home for the duration of that tour kind of thing. I don't know.
But I think that's kind of what they're already doing for the most part. The problem is they're a live touring company. That's what their brand is all built around. So, since they're already sort of doing what you just described, the next logical step is to do it like ROH behind closed doors, and then they're losing money, and there's no reason for them to really do it except for just to kind of honor tradition at that point, if that's what they're doing. I mean, and I don't see them going that route. So yeah, this is a tough one. I don't know.
Yeah. Next question from EMJ.PR. The time has come. Sukabayashi has tapped you on the shoulder and says, Jeremy, young boy, get us out of this mess. Gator reluctantly hands you the book and says, book yourself out of this, Mark. What do you, with the roster, no Ospreay, in the top of the card?
One thing I thought of, you could maybe push Jeff Cobb.
Yeah, that is a good option. They've been feuding him with Ibushi. The heel run has been great for him. He's a guy yes, he's done some G1s. He's had some good matches with some of the guys like Tanahashi and stuff like that. But to me, I feel like he's totally rejuvenated in this heel role. And it's a new Jeff Cobb. And I think he could become that kind of, Gaijin monster heel and just wreck through the domestic baby faces until you build up like Okada or whatever to take him out.
Yeah, that's one thing. I think I kind of laid out my basic plan would be, I might just put the title on Suzuki and have him hold it till the Dome.
Yeah, so for me, I think I would
or have him win the title, drop it to Okada, and then you do Naito and Okada at the Dome again.
Yeah, that is a possibility. I think as far as determining a new champion, I wouldn't mind them doing like some kind of 8-man tournament. Like start doing it at the Road to Dominion and maybe have like the semifinals and finals on the Dominion show. I think that would be a way to spice up the Road to shows so there's something at stakes and makes people want to actually watch what's going on there. And then not just kind of randomly picking two guys. I think a 8-man tournament, you can pick previous champions and some of the top contenders.
So who would you have? I mean, you got Okada, you got Ibushi,
Naito, Shingo,
Tanahashi.
I would do Zack Sabre Jr.
Jay White.
Yeah, Jay White, yeah.
And maybe Suzuki.
Yeah.
And maybe you could maybe take Suzuki or Zack Sabre out. Maybe, I don't know, put one of those Empire guys in there, something like that. But yeah, I mean, that's an option. But my problem is there's not a lot of the two most recent Road 2 shows, like, there's just not a lot of story development taking place. And we were kind of hoping that over these next 6 shows with Dominion that there'd be a lot of story development and feuds, kind of building. But they're not even doing that. And I think part of the reason why is because, again, they need the flexibility for whatever the big shows are going to be because they don't know what the day-to-day is really going to look like with a COVID outbreak.
Right.
So
they're still waiting on people recovering, guys like Okada and Taichi,
right.
And obviously guys that we can kind of guess who are still missing. Roppongi 3K, Yuya Uemura. There's still a lot of names that are, Despi, Kanemaru.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of the dilemma that they're in. But yeah.
Rambone Slam Pig says, with the rumors that Ospreay may not be seriously injured going around, do you think NJPW may find themselves in the position of disclosing more specific details regarding his condition than they are used to in order to kill these rumors? Will they continue business as usual?
I don't think so. I think for the time being, they're going to play this one close to the chest, especially if there's a chance of reconciliation. And I don't even say that in the sense that like there's for sure a rift between them. It's just a report we've heard. Who knows what kind of contact Will is having with the company. Things might be gravy. I don't know. But let's just say that they're not copacetic right now and they want to bring him back. They might want to just stick to the company line for now and then maybe kind of leave the potential for a return down the line.
Right. Moving on to the next question here. Pretty much kind of covered this. He said, if you were Gato based on the available roster, who would you put together for a heavyweight title match at Dominion? If Okada is available, I would go with Shingo versus Okada. Would that be enough to start changing the narrative that has been forming?
Yeah, my feeling too is like Shingo's not beating Okada for the title. So, that's Shingo taking 3 losses back to back in big spots. That's my kind of concern there.
Yeah, that would kind of hurt him with some of the momentum he's kind of built up.
You could go back to Naito too.
Yeah. Kind of give him
or Tanahashi.
Yeah, there's
some options.
There's several options there. Tanahashi, again, you can have that thing of him becoming, winning the World Heavyweight title for the first time. And I think, Tanahashi's still a draw. Like you mentioned, the champion doesn't need to be a super out of this world draw right now because they're only putting 300 people in Corkin right now.
Right. Most of what I had said about Suzuki, you can apply to Tanahashi. It's almost the same situation. Both guys are legends. Both guys have credibility. Both guys are draws. Both guys have wrestled almost all their protected matches that are available. I think they both could make sense as being that guy.
Yeah, the only problem I see with Tanahashi, I think a lot of people will see that as really the big band-aid going back to a guy like Tanahashi who hasn't really been in the title picture that much since he lost to Jay White in 2019.
Who he also just lost the Never title to.
Right.
But the thing, though, yeah, there is an aspect of that, and I don't know if those feelings would linger with the domestic crowd, but I feel like there's a good chance that might just be more of a problem with, like the foreign smarky groups like us, because I mean he's still Tanahashi,
Right.
And I don't think people are gonna be like, what the fuck is this? They want to put the belt on Tanahashi's waist. I have a feeling people over there would probably welcome it.
Yeah. I think it would go over well, but I do think there would be a small subsect of fans that are like, oh, back to Tanahashi, like nothing's moving forward right now, kind of thing. So,
because I mean, Noah's got the strap on Muto, and that seems to be working out for them. So
yeah,
I don't.
Yeah, things seem to be lit over there. So,
Stale Burger Bun asks us, how can we blame New Japan's current rumored state on AEW or WWE?
I mean, we could say that Tony Khan and Vince McMahon worked together to create COVID to damage New Japan.
I think the thing that they've done is create a more competitive marketplace that, took a company that was somewhat comfortable in how they're handling their business dealings in New Japan, and it's now forcing them to sort of reevaluate how they do business with foreign talents, because there's a lot more places to work and a lot more money to be made. And that's sort of what lured someone like Lance Archer away last year,
Right. Yeah.
But I wouldn't blame how the company is right now on them.
Right. I think he was just joking around.
Yeah, I don't know. I assume it's because there's toxicity with fans doing stuff like that, but I don't know. Honestly, I feel like New Japan is like out of the zeitgeist, and it's just like a raging flame war between like AEW and WWE fans. Like New Japan fans are just sort of like this redhead stepchild over on the side.
New Japan fans just happen when anything good happens. I mean, you saw how happy people were with Narita being on Dark Elevation, and Rocky was on there as well. So anytime like the Forbidden Door gets open, people get super ecstatic about that.
Nah, you know what that reminded me of? It's like I think a lot of the and I'm just being funny here. It's kind of a joke, but like I think a lot of the people that were excited were like people who used to be New Japan fans, but who now watch AEW, and they're like, oh, they're bringing New Japan over, and it's like, bro, you could have been watching like the whole time, but you're happy because they put it on your channel instead of you watching on World.
Right.
It's like when someone from like a blue state leaves, goes to a red state, and then votes blue, Got to fix this shit over here,
Next set of questions here from Dom Homie 101. If his thoughts on VOW reports of the whole Ospreay situation, do you guys think there's some actual truth in this report?
I'll tell you one thing. We've spoken about it at length, but Joe and Rich don't lie.
Yeah.
They're not going to put their reputation and their livelihood on the line for clout. They're not even clout chasers. Like, they're not going to lie. So, could there be inaccuracies because the report that was given to them might be inaccurate? Yeah, but they're not going to lie.
Right. They are reporting what they are hearing, what they're getting from their sources, which have been very reliable. They have broken news stories in the past that have been true, and so they're definitely a trusted source that I go to. I pay for the Patreon and get all the updates, so I think the report is, from what they're saying, is accurate.
Do you guys think that maybe New Japan should relocate to the States until things in Japan cool down? Maybe they could put the main talent on Strong, or maybe actually open the Forbidden Door. And I would say no.
Yeah, I mean, the big issue with that is, how are you going to make money? You can't make money with Strong. If they want to, try and do a U.S. tour and maybe move Strong around and try and get money that way, maybe. But
what are they going to do? They're going to run Arizona, California, or Texas, Florida, and Nevada, just like AEW, WWE, and Ring of Honor are planning to do. It's like the most saturated market. Do you know how expensive? That was one of the things that Harold May was extremely criticized about, was all the U.S. tours that they did, because they cost so much money. Dude, to bring the production of New Japan over to America to try to run live touring dates, oh my God, that'd be like the worst business decision. They'd lose so much money.
Yeah. I mean, in theory, that'd be great to have New Japan shows in the U.S. for a little bit, but yeah, no, business-wise, that's not a smart move.
With Ospreay being out of the picture for the time being, where do New Japan go from here? What should they do when it comes to crowning a new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion? Would crowning a new champion in G1 be a good idea? So I think we've kind of thrown out our speculations and stuff about that. One thing I do want to ask you, though, Jeremy, realistic timetable. We've given some ideas, but what do you think is actually going to happen when it comes to crowning a new champion? And what's on the schedule, basically, to allot for that?
So I think that we're going to see some kind of champion. I don't know if they're going to do a tournament, what they're going to do. So we're going to see a new champion crowned Dominion. They're already been showing advertisements for Dominion, kind of showing the IWGP World Heavyweight title, showing Ibushi, Ospreay, and there's been a real focus on that Dominion commercial on the champion. Also, I don't speak Japanese, so I'm not sure exactly what the commercial was saying, but I feel like we'll see a champion crowned then. After tomorrow is the last televised Road to Wrestle Grand Slam tour. Then next week there'll be 3 Road to Dominion tours that will lead then to Dominion. So also we've seen a couple feuds that are kind of started on these shows this week. So they could be leading to some kind of mini tournament, some kind of play-in matches that they'll do to get the new champion. But yeah, I think the Road to Dominion and Dominion will be the thing that gets us to our new champion.
Yeah, I'm looking at the schedule and everything, and it's like I think with there being 3 Road to Dominion shows next week, there's not enough time for them to realistically do a tournament. They could if they make like a press release, but the way things have been going, I just don't think they're going to commit to that until, if they were going to do a tournament, I could only see them doing a one-night tournament at Dominion with maybe who knows? We don't even know what's on Dominion. They could do a one-night 16-man tournament like, WrestleMania 4 style if they wanted.
Right. And I think, too, they probably haven't announced anything because, again, they're still kind of waiting on – because I'm sure
that's what I meant, yeah.
I'm sure they're going to want Okada involved somehow in that tournament, so they're still waiting on him to recoup. And I'm sure they're going to want maybe a Jay White, a Tai Chi. They're going to want some of these guys that are on the bench right now in this tournament.
That's why I'm discounting the idea of them committing to anything between June 1st and 4th. I couldn't see them like, okay, we're going to start with the first 8 guys, and then the 4 that get through are going to be in a one-night tournament at Dominion. Like, they're not going to do something like that because they don't even know who they have yet. And that's the one thing. The very fact that it's been a week now and there's been no announcement about what is happening with the IWGP title tells me that things are bad and the company does not know what they're going to do. Or if they do, they are not telling us. And that's not a good sign.
Right. We've seen in the past when champions get stripped, injured, the title's vacated, a game plan is announced very quickly. We saw with the Mox situation where he was stripped of the U.S. title, like the Archer Moxley or Archer Juice Robinson match, like that was immediately announced that was immediately turned into the title match. So we've seen in the past Hiromu losing the belt, they go to the tournament, there's all these incidents we've seen in the past where people have to lose a belt through injury or can't get in the country or whatever, and they have a plan immediately.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it for this coverage. We got some other things to kind of talk about, but we gave you almost an hour and a half of audio on this, so I feel like we've really exhaustively covered this for you guys.
Yeah. And there's a couple other things here that we kind of already mentioned. Also, we mentioned Kazuchika Okada, Tai Chi being revealed as two of the wrestlers who tested positive for COVID-19. Something else that you mentioned, Japan's top government spokesman hinted at the possibility of extended the coronavirus state of emergency in Tokyo, Osaka, and 7 other prefectures beyond the May 31st expiration date, possibly until June 20th. And something else I've mentioned already, the Tokyo Dome is going to be used as a mass vaccination center in August. So moving on now to the Road to Wrestle Grand Slam Tour. We had televised shows from Cork Hall on Monday, May 24th, today, May 25th, and then there will be a third show airing tomorrow, May 26th. So we can just kind of run through these results here. I don't really think we need to kind of give a blow-by-blow here. There are a couple things that are brewing from these shows. Kind of the first thing, it seems like Yota Tsuji is almost like on a mini little trial series here. So he has a couple singles matches through this tour. So starting on the 24th show, he faced off against Yujiro Takahashi, was defeated by Yujiro with the Pimp Juice, 8 minutes and 24 seconds. We then had Suzuki-gun of Doki and Zack Sabre Jr. defeating the Bullet Club team of Chase Owens and Gato. We had Guerrillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga Tangaloa defeating Tenzan and Hanma. Post-match, there was a GOD jaw-jacking at Taichi, and we know that with Sabre beating Tangaloa at Dontaku, that Dangerous Takers are getting a title shot. So I'm sure that's hoping, as soon as Taichi gets better, I'm sure we'll get that tag title match in the future. Then the semi-main event, we had the United Empire of Great Okan and Jeff Cobb defeating Kota Ibushi and Master Wato. So here they are continuing the Jeff Cobb, Kota Ibushi feud. Very heated here. Cobb using the Kamigoye on Master Wato, followed by a Tour of the Islands to get the pin over Wato. And so it's kind of the post-match jaw-jacking, and so kind of adding some heat here between Cobb and Ibushi. And then the main event, we had the LIJ team of Bushi, Sanada, Shingo, and Tetsuya Naito defeating the Chaos team of Hiroki Goto, Tomohiro Ishii, and Yoshihashi, and teamed up with Hiroshi Tanahashi. Interesting thing here, it seems to be starting some heat between Naito and Tomohiro Ishii. Throughout the match, they were at each other's throats, and then post-match, there's kind of like a pull apart, and Ishii and Naito just really going at each other, and Ishii just really wanting to take on Naito. Comments from Ishii kind of saying, Naito, do you want a singles match, or do you want a never 6-man title match? So, if a tournament's happening, that could be a potential first-round match, Naito and Ishii, or maybe on one of these road twos, they're going to do a never 6-man and Chaos versus LIJ for the titles. We'll see what comes from that, but definitely kind of starting something there with Naito and Ishii. So then moving on to the second night of Road to Wrestle Grand Slam, we had Chase Owens defeating Yota Tsuji, Package Pile Driver, 8 minutes, 34 seconds. We had Doki and Sabre defeating Taiji Ishimori and Yujiro Takahashi. Tama Tonga and Tangaloa defeating Tenzan and Master Wato. Semi-main event, LIJ taking on Goto, Taguchi, Ishii, and Yoshihashi. And once again, like I mentioned, big focus on Ishii and Naito, and them just really being at each other's throats throughout the match and post-match. So definitely something's brewing there. And then the main event, we had Golden Ace defeating the United Empire. Cobb once again trying to tease, hitting Tanahashi with the Kamigoye. Tanahashi was able to reverse, hit him with a Sling Blade. Ibushi then hit Great Okan with his Kamigoye. 1, 2, 3. Ibushi gets the win here. Some post-match jaw-jacking. So obviously the Kyle Ibushi match is coming. Will probably be at the Dominion. It could be a part of how they determine the champion. And then coming up on tomorrow's show, we will have Shingo versus Tsuji, which should be a really fun matchup to open the show there. Then we'll have Tanahashi, Tenzan, Wato taking on Taiji Ishimori, Chase Owens, and Yujiro Takahashi. Sabre and Doki taking on GOD, Kota Ibushi, and Hanma taking on Jeff Cobb and Great Okan. And then the main event will be Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi taking on Tetsuya Naito and Sanada.
Sounds just, earth-shattering.
Any thoughts on the potential Naito-Ishii rivalry that's starting here?
No, I think pretty much at this point, like, Naito hasn't done anything much this year since, dropping the belt. He had the little feud with Great O'Khan and kind of got his win back, and since then he's just kind of been floating. So, I don't think Ishii's a bad opponent. They've had great matches in the past, but at this very moment, it's not something that I'm like overly enthused about. But I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because there's a lot of considerations.
Yeah. All right, let's move on over to New Japan Strong. This past Friday, May 21st, we had night 3 of the Collision Tour. Show opened up. We had the return of Bateman. He defeated LA Dojo young lion Alex Coughlin, 9 minutes and 43 seconds. Coughlin's neck being kind of the target here for Bateman. Coughlin coming back from a neck injury, and so everybody's been targeting the neck here. Bateman gets the win here. Then we had the team of Brody King and Carl Fredericks defeating the team Filthy Team of Dane Limelight, JR Kratos, with Fredericks hitting the Manifest Destiny on Dane Limelight, get the win there. So once again, it seems like they're kind of building up Carl Fredericks for a potential strong title match. He eliminated Filthy Tom the previous week in the Battle Royal, in the 4-on-4 elimination match. And, if Filthy gets by Dickinson, you could potentially have Carl Fredericks as the next challenger in line.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad way to go, with Carl Fredericks kind of being the next guy. But we'll have to see how that all plays out. When I was watching this match, one thing I thought to myself is, like, I don't know why, but I think JR Kratos and Brody King would be, like, the most badass tag team.
Oh, yeah, that would be awesome.
People really like when you have two opposites, power guy and a high flyer, fast guy and a slow guy, blah, blah. Nah, bro, give me two horses, give me a Violent Giants or like a Strong BJ, Road Warriors, Brody and Hanson. Give me two dudes that you're like, I don't know if I could beat one of them. How am I going to beat two of them?
Right.
And
why have one hoss when you could have two?
Yeah, I want those guys to team up and just fuck everybody up. Like, I would rather that. But but yeah, this match was fine. I'm excited if that's the way they go for Carl.
Yeah. Then the main event here, we had the first no DQ match in Strong history here, as Fred Rosser, Mr. No Days Off, defeats Hikuleo 15 minutes and 32 seconds. What did you think about this match, young boy?
I don't know, man. Did you like this match? I don't think I really liked this match.
I liked it. I know it wasn't the traditional, New Japan style main event, but I thought these guys worked really hard. They were hitting each other hard, very, very physical, kind of a walk-in brawl style match, very intense. You can tell like these guys, were in a feud. They hated each other and brawling all throughout the arena. We saw them going back into the ring truck and fighting in there, and then also that there was the botch spot with a table where both of them were supposed to go through.
Yeah, that was not good.
Yeah, that didn't look good, but they kind of worked through it there, and then Fred Rosser gets the big win here, wins the rivalry, puts Hikuleo in the rear view, cut an impassioned promo post match, and he's gunning for the Strong Championship.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. This match was fine. I just couldn't get into it. In fact, this was not really my favorite episode of Strong. It was fine. It was solid, but I didn't think it was like, the strongest episode. No pun intended.
Yeah.
The main event was good. I thought it was great that they kind of gave Fred Rosser like the definitive Strong kind of like feud ending win. Because the other time he won, he kind of cheated and everything like that. So, he picked up the big win here, and it kind of makes him a viable potential opponent for to challenge for the title. But I don't know. I didn't feel this match. I know they worked hard, but I just wasn't into it. for whatever reason.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of mixed reviews on this match. It seems like cage match is very low on the match. Seems like grapple are kind of in the mind thinking where I'm at with the match. I was about 3.5 on it.
That's probably what I'd go to. I mean, that sounds fair. They worked hard. It's probably 3.5. I mean, I haven't looked at any of the ratings, so I don't know.
Yeah, grapple, it was like a 4 point something on grapple, meaning it was like 2 stars in a lot of the grapple users' minds, but I mean, not grapple, excuse me, cage match mine, the cage match inmates, but I don't know. I thought it was a good main event. It's been built up for a while now that they've had a history of the rivalry, starting with Fred cheating to beat him, and then they had the New Japan Cup match where Hikuleo got the win back, and so yeah, it's been a nice little feud. Like we mentioned, it's good to have feuds on this show, and so this is one of the bigger feuds that they've had and kind of get blowed off here, and they are setting the stage of establishing guys who could be potential challengers for the Openweight Championship. So then coming up next week, we will have the conclusion of the Collision Tour this Friday, May 28th. We'll have the Wild Rhino, Clark Connors, taking on AJZ. We'll have El Phantasmo taking on Wheeler Utah. And then we will have the big main event that's been built up now for these last several weeks, the Strong Openweight Championship on the line as Filthy Tom Lawler defends against the Dirty Daddy Chris Dickinson. And if you haven't checked it out, make sure you check out our interview that we did last week with the Dirty Daddy as you get ready for this Friday's Strong title match. We did have a question here from Grunty Dodds. It says, to piggyback on last week's interview, what are some of your favorite Chris Dixon matches outside of NJPW? I like him a lot from what I've seen, but I've only caught half a dozen of his GCW bouts.
Oh, man, that's a tough question. I mean, I watched Chris for a while, but I mean, he's also been in some of the less accessible companies, like Beyond, like GCW, places like that. But yeah, if I'm thinking about it, he had one of the matches I really like. 2019, he had a match with Sakamoto from like July of that year. That's one of like my favorite matches that he's had. He last week he talked about the match when they toured Japan with GCW. He had against Okabayashi. That match is really, really, really good. Most of his Bloodsport stuff, people really tend to like the Mox match from the Indianapolis Bloodsport show. That stuff's really good. He's got a lot of good stuff out there. Like, he's pretty much wrestled everybody on the indie scene, recently.
Yeah, and even like you mentioned, some of the Beyond stuff in GCW, he has a lot of good intergender matches that are out there too. He had a great match with Chris Statlander that's out there. That was in GCW.
You know what? It's one of them, and I think it's free on YouTube. Dickinson against Samoa Joe from House of Glory in 2015 when Joe was on his, on his indie run just prior to when he was just signed to NXT. That's a really cool match. It might not be like the best match, but that's a cool one. The match he had this past WrestleMania weekend, he wrestled Joey Janela, right? Or was it not Janela? Who did he wrestle at Spring Break?
I'm blank. Did he?
I think he did wrestle Joey Janela, didn't he?
It might have been Janela, yeah.
He did. That match is awesome. If you guys haven't gotten a chance to check that match out, I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah, Chris has had a ton of great matches, and there's a ton of great stuff in Evolve, too. I really enjoyed him and Jaka as a team.
Yeah.
So you can check out a lot of their tag matches.
Yeah, the Brian Cage PWG match that he referenced last week from 2016 is very good as well. Yeah, he was part of what, Catch Point?
Yeah, they were Catch Point, and then I think they broke off, and they were the Doom Patrol, I think was their team.
That's right, Doom Patrol. Yeah, they were really good. I thought the match that they had in Ybor against
Street Profits.
Street Profits is very good.
Yeah, that was a pretty good main event that we saw that night in the Orpheum.
So, yeah, there's a lot of really, really good stuff out there. Oh, he had a match with Matt Mikowski in Beyond last year that was very good. Like, really, really, really good. That's worth checking out, too. So, I mean, yeah, that's a lot of stuff right there.
Yeah, and also keep an eye on all the stuff he's doing now. I mean, he's still doing Beyond GCW, Ring of Honor. He's going to be in the Survival of the Fittest tournament for Ring of Honor that's coming up.
Did they have him tap Tracy Williams like in seconds? I saw him tap someone in ROH the other day and they said it was like one of the fastest matches in ROH history. But like he put someone in a rolling knee bar, it looked like, and I thought it was Tracy, but I wasn't sure if that's who it was.
It could have been. I know Tracy Williams just dropped the TV title to Tony Deppen, so maybe that could have been a follow-up match after that. And because Deppen's a part of the Violence faction with Brody and Dickinson and Homicide, so maybe that was
But I guess we should just, this is the big match coming up. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, they've had one match prior in Beyond. I'm really looking forward to this, but I mean, who do you think wins?
I mean, as much as I would love, see Dirty Daddy succeed and get a big win, I do think that Filthy Tom, by hook or by crook, is going to get the win here. I think they're going to use him and kind of establish his championship. And so I do think, and pretty much based on what they've been building up on the undercard, we're seeing baby faces like Carl Fredericks being ready, Fred Rosser being ready. I feel like we're going to get a nice, decent length run here of Lawler taking on some baby faces and Strong.
Yeah, that's sort of what it's feeling like, especially since he just won the title. It might be a little too premature to take the title off of him, which is one of the reasons that I originally didn't think they should do this match necessarily, although I'm excited for it because I want to see it. I felt like I thought maybe there's some more juice you could get out of the squeeze, especially considering who these two guys are. But I'm excited for it, I haven't really been super, super enthused for a Strong match since probably, since when Tom Lawler won the title. So really looking forward to this episode. Can't wait. And, we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I think this will be one of the better Strong main events of the year. It'll be kind of up there as one of those really top matches. And I think these guys are going to work really hard. I think it's going to be very hard hitting. I think we're going to see a lot of great grappling, chain wrestling, submission wrestling, kind of maybe a little shoot style. Might turn into a little blood sport action here. But yeah, this should be a great main event. I think everybody should go out of their way to check out this main event this Friday.
In the news this week, Kota Ibushi described his injury as a sprained or torn ligament in his instep. He said he got it on the landing during the spot where Tetsuya Naito gave him a Frankensteiner off the top rope on the 1-4 Tokyo Dome match. He was told the best thing for it was to not move or put weight on the instep for 3 months, but he said he has no choice as champion and had to defend the title for 48 minutes the next night against Jay White. So that's kind of the ongoing, injury that he's been dealing with. Forbidden Door news. I feel like we should have you need to get something on your sound machine there.
The Forbidden Door. Yes.
In Impact, Finjuice lost the Impact Tag Team titles to Violent by Design. That's the team of Rhino and Jadoring this past week. And the announcement was made that Kojima will be debuting on Impact this very week.
That's right. My man, Satoshi Kojima, Bread Club is coming to Impact. I'm sorry, Kenny. You need to hold his strongest arm. Drop the Impact World title to my man, Kojima. Let this man run Tennessee for a little bit.
AEW, Ren Narita wrestled Hoist Isaacs on Dark and defeated him. So big win for Ren on his excursion. And Rocky Romero defeated JD Drake. And post-match, the faction that JD Drake is a part of, the Wingmen, attacked Rocky Romero, which prompted the Roppongi Vice music to blare over the system. Out comes Trent Beretta. He cleared house, and it created a moment for the reunion of Roppongi Vice.
Yeah, great little use here on Dark Elevation. It was great to see Rocky and Trent back together, and the fact that they even booked that, and yeah, they had the Roppongi Vice music. That was pretty cool to see, and I found it very interesting that Ren Narita, he didn't come out to the LA Dojo music like he's been coming out to on Strong. He had his own music, own custom Titantron. So I'm wondering if we're going to see that kind of spill back over to Strong.
I don't think so. If I was taking a guess, I bet you that was like an AEW thing.
Yeah.
Which might mean maybe he's going to continue to make dates on AEW.
Which would be pretty cool.
Which, I mean, him picking up a win over like Royce Isaacs, I mean, I don't know, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Final thing here, in Ring of Honor, Fred Yehi defeated Rocky Romero on the same night that he defeated JD Drake. So that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, Rocky Romero, this man is, pulling a Rick Rude, showing up on two companies on the same night. Rocky, he's working very hard. He wants to win the Keeping It Strong Style Excursion match of the year. This man is wrestling all over the place. He's wrestling in Ring of Honor, AEW, Bloodsport. He wants that excursion match of the year.
Yeah, he wrestled on MLW everywhere.
Yeah, MLW. Yeah, this man, he's trying to get some consideration here.
We need to give him an award just for being like the excursion representative of the year. Like, it's not even something that's voted on. It's just like we just give it away. You've been more places.
The excursion MVP.
Yeah, he's the excursion MVP. We should call it the ambassador of New Japan.
Yeah.
Ambassador award, Just call this man out. One thing that's not on the list here, but this past week, the Dark Side of the Ring episode detailing the collision in Korea aired, and they even had a exclusive interview on that episode with the founder of New Japan, Antonio Inoki, and that episode detailed the co-promoted show between WCW and New Japan when they went to North Korea back in 1995. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Did you see that episode, Jeremy?
I have not got you to see yet. I'm definitely going to try and watch it this week.
Yeah, I would highly recommend it. I thought it was really great. The only thing I will say, and I don't want to get too far into it, but they told the story of Rikidozan's death and framed it, and this actually came from Eric Bischoff, as though he was murdered in Japan due to the racial tensions between Japanese and North Korean people, and with Rikidozan secretly being a North Korean individual, that's why he got killed, which is not true, like even a little bit. In fact, that is actually what they teach children in Korea. They teach them that he was murdered in Japan for his heritage, and he's like a great hero and sporting figure, but it's not accurate at all. There's about 4 or 5 different versions of what happened when Rikidozan was murdered, so I won't go deep into that, but none of the truthful versions ever talk about him being Korean as being the catalyst for his death. So I did not like that that they kept that in there, because it's like, typically that show's pretty good and they try to be pretty reputable, but I mean, that was just like something that is not even kind of true,
Yeah, and Meltzer was talking about that this weekend and told, one of the, truer stories that he heard about the whole incident and how he got and his death there. And kind of mentioned, I think it was Eric Bischoff was the one that was kind of telling that story, and
yeah, he just threw it out there and then they kept it, and I'm like, why would you keep this? It's like, well, it's not true.
Yeah. And jumping down, we did have a question about this episode of Dark Side of the Ring, and so Donovan 101 said, any thoughts on the recent Collision in Korea episode of Vice's Dark Side of the Ring? Also, any thoughts on the entire series? What are your favorite episodes of the series? His are the Herb Abrams, New Jack, and David Schultz.
Oh, very interesting. I liked the episode a lot. One thing, though, I did kind of feel like was, while the entire event was super surreal and they did a good job getting, some great people involved, especially Scott Norton and Too Cold Scorpio were especially good on this week's episode. I kind of felt like they were struggling to have strong content for it, almost like they really delved heavy into an ongoing issue between
Hawk and Too Cold Scorpio. If you haven't seen Germany, you should definitely check it out. It's pretty interesting and everything, but it's like, I don't know. It just felt like there was not as much content in this week's episode as there usually is, because, I mean, how much can you really get out of a 2 to 3 day trip that they took to North Korea? I mean, it's super interesting, but I felt like there wasn't as much there as other ones,
Yeah, they were stretching it out.
Yeah, I felt like they stretched it out a little bit. That's a good way to put it. But yeah, I love the series. I think all the episodes are very, very good. I mean, I like the Gino Hernandez episode. The Owen episode was especially great. The Benoit episodes.
Yeah. I really enjoyed, the opening of this season with the 2 Pillman episodes.
Those were really good. The Von Erich episodes were great. So yeah, some really good stuff there. I can't wait for the Warrior episode that's about to come out.
Yeah, I think wasn't it this past weekend? Because they had.
I don't know, man. I catch them like on a different. I catch them different. If it's out, I'm gonna find it after this and watch it.
Because I definitely know the A&E Warrior
The
documentary.
A&E one came out.
Yeah, and so I knew.
I don't think the Dark Side's out yet.
Gotcha. Maybe it's this coming up Thursday.
Yes, should be.
And 2 last things here in the news. The free match of the week is Clark Connors and Carl Fredericks versus Yota Tsuji and Ren Narita from the G1 Climax 2029, Day 19.
I remember that tag being good.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. And then Tokon Shop Global is presenting a Jushin Thunder Liger online meet and greet on June 2nd. So go to Tokon Shop Global, to register, look up that information. And I think that's open to, stateside fans. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so now we're going to wrap the show up here with a few last questions and recommended match of the week. So Viking Pain says, how much donations would it take for the 6'3" young boy to carry the 5'6" Matt Sydal on his shoulders to the ring on an episode of Dynamite, a la Devitt and Fale?
I could ask Matt and find out.
All right, let's do it. Let's get it set.
I'll text him and he'll give me an answer, and then we'll let you know. And then you just PayPal me, and then I'll be sure that that happens.
He also asks, he says, I'm sure you guys
isn't it interesting, Viking Pain? You're like literally 4 degrees of separation away from TK himself. You send something to me, I send it to Matt. Matt sends it to TK, and then we play telephone back, and then you give me money. It works out.
He also asks, I'm sure you guys heard about Wilder Fury 3, so who you got? Do you think Fury would dominate the fight again, or will Wilder learn from his mistakes and finally be able to land that one punch and knock him out?
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, long story short, Fury was going to fight Joshua. They hold all the world titles at heavyweight, so it's going to be a unification of all the world titles. But for the most part, most pundits view Fury as the official lineal and Ring Magazine world champion. But this is going to kind of put it to rest. And there was a date set and everything. Wilder had a rematch clause, and he went to court and won his court case. And now that fight is not happening. And now Fury is having to fight Wilder again for a 3rd time. And in the meantime, Alexander Usyk, who is the WBO mandatory, and he's the former undisputed cruiserweight champion, and he's also an undefeated fighter, is going to be fighting Joshua. And I'll tell you, I'll throw this one in for a freebie. I think Usyk could knock out Joshua. And maybe not knock him out, but he could beat Joshua. I definitely feel that way. That's going to be a great fight if it does happen. But in the meantime, Wilder Fury 3, I think it's open and shut for Fury. I mean, every fight's different, so who knows if he doesn't come in motivated or something like that. But I don't know what Wilder can do differently from a match, or from a game plan standpoint to beat Fury.
Well, there's one thing he can do, not walk out with that big entrance gear, because also that hindered his performance.
Apparently, that's what he claimed. So yeah, this man got his ass beat and got knocked out last time. So yeah, he needs to learn how to fight going backwards, because that's what was his undoing. He couldn't fight going backwards. He needs to be the one coming forward against Fury. He might want to put on some weight too. He might want to put on some weight and try to muscle Fury. I don't know, man. It's not looking good for him, to be honest with you. I think it's a bad fight for him. He hasn't even had a tune-up fight. So yeah.
Next question here.
I got Fury easily.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the boxing expert, but I have seen their first two fights, but I'm going to go with Fury also. Next question here from Hawaiian Punch BV. Have you guys checked out the Hana Kimura Memorial Show? Why are Bushiroad and or Stardom coming across as dicks by not letting them use their footage and putting on a show on the same date? So I have not watched the Hana Kimura Memorial Show yet. I did hear it was awesome. I do want to check it out, and heard that Kagetsu and Hazuki were back in action for that show, and it was cool. I was not aware of Bushiroad or Stardom not allowing them to use footage for this Memorial Show, and I didn't realize that there was another Bushiroad show that was running up against the Memorial Show.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I didn't know about any of that stuff. I heard good things about the show. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe it's just some kind of licensing deal, whatever, that they couldn't. Who knows? Maybe.
Let me ask this next part. Also, how would you feel if New Japan brought a couple of these indie talents to fill out their cards? Wrestlers like Hub, H-U-B, Hub. Jeremy, do you know who Hub is?
I do not.
Okay, what about this one? Mil Mongoose.
I do not know Mr. Mongoose.
Really? You don't know the luchador legend Mil Mongoose?
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, what about this young upstart, fiery babyface, Shota Guerrero?
I do not know Shota Guerrero. I know Shota Umino. I know a Chavo Guerrero. I do not know a Shota Guerrero.
All right, well, you got to know this one. This deathmatch legend, Banana Senga.
I'm failing you, man. I don't know who Banana Senga is.
Well, everybody knows Landry Muto, so that's a slam dunk, right?
I don't know who that is either.
Yeah, who the fuck are these people? I've never heard of a single one of these people. He said, why haven't they brought on Shima and the Strong Hearts? They've already competed almost everywhere in Japan. And I don't know the answer to that either.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like right now that Shima and the Strong Hearts, it seems like, isn't like GLEAT kind of like the next big thing they're trying to get involved in?
Well, he's like the All Japan Junior Champion. They've literally wrestled everywhere. Big Japan, I think DDT, All Japan. I think they might have done some Noah. So they've been everywhere. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would love that. I think Shima's really cool, and Strong Hearts it was going to be a cool kind of thing to have in AEW, but due to the pandemic, they haven't been able to get there. So I think adding Shima and the Strong Hearts would be a nice little shot of adrenaline to the roster and some fresh matchups and some fresh feuds you can do there.
Next question. MJ Does PR says, Lance Archer appeared to want to fight Mox after his match with Nagata. Would the IWGP committee allow for such a challenge?
I mean, at this point, who knows what the IWGP would allow and not allow?
It's Rocky.
Rocky's the committee?
I'm pretty sure Rocky's the U.S. committee. Just him, he acts solely. He's a single-person committee.
I mean, I think it would be cool. I'll say I don't think they want to take the belt off Mox, so Archer would have to lose. So I think as long as Mox wins, I think it would be pretty cool to kind of do like a U.S. title rematch on Dynamite or pay-per-view or one of these TNT quarterly specials that's going to happen, and have Mox defend the title against Archer. I think would be cool.
Time for Fight Talk. Dom Homie 101 asks, thoughts on the surprise announcement of Errol Spence Jr. and Manny Pacquiao. And I got to tell you, I am super excited for this. I feel bad for Manny Pacquiao because I believe Errol Spence Jr. is probably going to beat him pretty badly. This is coming from someone that believes wholeheartedly that Keith Thurman easily won probably like split points decision against Manny. Although I know Manny knocked him down early in the fight.
Like, look at the numbers, go back and watch that fight. Like, I'm hard pressed to be told that Keith Thurman didn't outbox Manny Pacquiao that night. And I think Errol Spence is younger, faster, hits harder, you know, and he's a better fighter than Keith Thurman was. And that was a couple years ago. So, yeah, I mean, I think if it was Bud Crawford, he knocks out Manny Pacquiao. With Errol Spence, I think Errol Spence beats him. Also, look at what Errol Spence did to Ryan or God, who was it that he fought from lightweight? One of the Garcias. But yeah, I think Manny, this will be like one of Manny's last big welterweight matches, fights, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeremy doesn't have anything to add to that. So, thoughts on the so-called U.S. boxing media and analysts being mad at Deontay Wilder for getting justice that he's entitled to? I think the reality here, though, is he contractually obligated to get a title fight? Yes. Is this something that he's deserving to get another payday based on the agreement from the second fight between him and Fury? Yes. But that man got the brakes beat off him. I mean, so bad that, like, why the fuck would you want to fight again? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And that's why people are mad. No one wants to see that. What we want to see is Joshua and Fury unify all the titles in the biggest fight in British boxing history. We don't want to see the second massacre of Deontay Wilder. I'd much rather Deontay Wilder go back to just knocking fools out and building himself back up. So I think that's why the media is just like, from a logical place, it's like, sure, does he, legally deserve the fight? Yeah. But I think there should be a rule. You get an automatic rematch unless you get fucked up in 6 rounds.
Yeah.
If you get fucked up in 6 rounds, you don't get a rematch,
Right. Only if it's like super close. Maybe it was obviously a draw somehow on the scoreboard, like a very close fight. I think
it should be called the Deontay Wilder rule. If you get fucked up in 6 rounds, you don't get a rematch.
Yeah, like
he didn't win a single round.
The rematch is null and void.
Yeah, it's like, bro, no. What the fuck? No one wants to see that. So, and then the last thing he said, this is not a question, but I'm recommending the upcoming Devin Haney and Jorge Linares bout. Devin Haney has some big tools and potential to become a big name in this game of boxing. I think the fight will be a breakout performance for Devin Haney. I agree. Jorge Linares is a bad man, though, so we'll see.
Nice. Well, speaking of recommending and recommendations, we have recommended match of the week. So last week, I recommended for us to watch the King of Pro Wrestling 2013 IC title match between Shinsuke Nakamura and Naomichi Marufuji. Young boy, what do you think about this match?
Yeah, I don't know how to. Oh, I'm sorry, Danny Garcia. That's who. No, Mikey. Okay, so he beat up Danny Garcia recently, Errol Spence, but back in 2019 he fucked up Mikey Garcia. So that's why I was getting confused there. Anyways, moving on. Yeah, I love this match, man. I don't know if I'd ever seen it previously, but it was really, really, really good. And I thought it told a really interesting story in that Nakamura was taking Marufuji a little bit for granted and kind of playing games with him. And Marufuji, like, literally taught him, like, I'm not the one.
Yeah.
Like, you do not want to fuck with me. Like, I'm not something to play with. And yeah, he was beating the fuck out of Nakamura in this match. And Nakamura kept trying to get back into the match, and Marufuji just kept cutting him off, like, all throughout the early portions of the match. And then eventually it was the striking acumen of Nakamura that allowed him to work his way back into the match. And I think the roles kind of got reversed a little bit in that while I do think Marufuji was looking for submissions and trying to submit Nakamura throughout the match, I noticed there was a clear lack of pinfalls, and he wasn't really trying to get Nakamura out of there the way he could have earlier. And that gave the wiggle room for Nakamura to finally land the 2 deciding Bombay knee strikes at the very end that allowed him to win. But there was not a lot of near falls in this match. It was just really fast-paced, high-octane wrestling, and Marufuji busting out all of his awesome offense
and kind of giving Nakamura a wrestling lesson.
Yeah, this was an awesome matchup. Very hard-hitting, high pace. I love Njpw. I love going back and watching his stuff in New Japan, and he's a guy that I would love for him. I know he's kind of tied up with Noah, right now.
Yeah.
I would love for him to, he's a great name that they could maybe work out some kind of agreement to bring him in to do stuff for New Japan in this time where you kind of need some more domestic talent coming in. I would love for him to be brought in, but yeah, Njpw's awesome.
Yeah, I give this a big recommend. If you haven't seen it, go out of your way to watch it. I'd probably rate it, 4.5.
Yeah, that's about where I was with 4.5.
Yeah, great match. Really, really enjoyable, and it's a little bit of a hidden gem there. So I enjoyed this quite a bit.
So what is the recommended match for this week?
Okay, we're going back to the year 1997 for the New Japan Pro Wrestling Fighting Spirit 1997 show from February 9th. This is available on New Japan World, so it's there. The main event with the J Crown title on the line. It is the challenger, Shinjiro Otani, taking on the champion, Jushin Thunder Liger. Dave Meltzer rated this match at the time, 4 3/4, as a 9.09 on Cage Match.
Sounds great to me. That should be a fun match to check out there.
And, just for shits and giggles, there is a Koji Kanemoto on the same show. Koji Kanemoto defeats Taka Michinoku in the semi-main event.
I'm watching that too.
He defeats Taka in the semi-main event to be the J Crown title #1 contender. 5 days later, Koji Kanemoto and Jushin Thunder Liger have another 4 3/4 star match for the J Crown. So, you kind of got a little tandem of Liger J Crown title defenses back to back there. So
nice. Well, I'm definitely gonna check out the recommended match. Check out all those other matches. You say Kanemoto, sign me up. You say Liger, sign me up. So should be some great stuff there to check out. And that's going to wrap things up for us here at Keeping It Strong Style for this week. Make sure you go out and check out the Social Suplex draft episode. Listen to the roster that Josh and I drafted, and then be on the lookout next week for the part 2 of the draft, which every team will reveal the cards for the draft and the cards that you guys can vote on. So we'll definitely need you guys to vote once the voting is open. But you already know that Josh and I are going to come up with a fire card just like we did last year. So check that out and join in on the draft fun. Let us know who you think has the best roster. Tweet at Social Suplex. Let us know what you thought about this year's draft. And next week we'll be back to review what's happening on the Road to Dominion Tour and hopefully some kind of announcement on what's happening with the IWGP World Heavyweight title. We'll see what happens. But if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate. Click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. The network is at Social Suplex. Also, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Social Suplex. You can find us in the Wrestling Squared Circle group, facebook.com/group/Wrestling Squared Circle. On Instagram, we are at Social Suplex. On Reddit, you can find me, the Pro Black Guy, and Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. You can email me, jeremy@socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We have One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. We have the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show from Scotland. We have the Grave Consequences podcast of Caleb and Maserati. We have 8-Bit Suplex with Josh #2. We have All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. And then we have Great Match Generator with Danny. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
Lowe's has more of what trade pros like you need to get the job done. That means more delivery options, more convenient hours to fit your schedule, and more savings to fit your budget. More of the brands you trust the most. More of everything you need, all in one place. That's why, in the past year, more electricians, landscapers, painters, plumbers, and other pros helped make Lowe's the new home for trade pros. U.S. only.